best way out of addiction, any addiction, in terms of being freed from it and being healed from it, is to trust in him and to ask him for help. Ask him. Well, you have to turn to him also. You have to allow him. You have to surrender, as in you have to let him take over.
So, what are we talking about today?
Today,
Yeah.
talking about addictions.
Wipe the sweat off your brow.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, there's none.
Yeah.
Addictions.
Yeah. So, I guess.
You know, I heard someone equate an addiction to a disease.
Okay.
Which makes sense, because depending on the addiction, no amount of willpower could get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that you need external influence or external intervention to help deal with it. For example, going to rehab for a heroin addiction, you're probably not gonna survive weaning yourself off heroin by sheer willpower and doing it yourself. You're gonna need other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an example, and it kind of depends on the addiction too.
Like I heard something that if you go if you go cold turkey on something, it could kill you.
Depending
on
like if it's alcohol.
If you have like a heavy ass addiction, and you just quit, your body will just be like,
peace out.
Like, I'm
gonna head out.
I'm head out too.
Yeah. No, actually, and that's the scary part. Which makes sense calling it a disease.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally a disease of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
It messes you up. I would say even depending on what you're doing, it could genuinely affect your brain and how it forms.
Yes.
And I can attest to that.
Same.
So, what do you want to talk about specifically?
I mean, like, in terms of maybe, like, I think one of the hardest things with an addiction is, trying to quit it.
Yes.
And keep it broken.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many times where I would hear about someone who's trying to break away from, let's say, weed, and it's like, oh, they've been away from weed for like a week, and they seem to be doing great. A week is just like an exaggeration or an example.
Just an example. A week, a month, 3 months.
Let's say someone that has been addicted to weed, and I know a few people, has been away from it for a week, right? And it's like, oh, they're looking great, and then suddenly they relapse, and it's like from an outer perspective, right? It seems like no big deal, but the fight within that person, like struggling with trying to kick that habit,
it's tumultuous. The thing with weed, though, I want to say is a little bit of a niche kind of a thing, because I think I might have been addicted to it at some point, or at least I was addicted to the escape that it provided.
Yeah. That's the other thing too.
But because addictions, they say something qualifies as an addiction if it lowers quality of life, or gets in the way of your life, or prevents you from functioning normally, or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have that issue with weed. I would just live my life normally, and I would get my work done and stuff, and then I would just get high at night, and then that was it.
Yeah.
But there were other personal issues, I think, that were along with that. Like escapism is just not good anyway.
No.
And that's why I stopped.
Part of it, though.
But that's slightly different, because it wasn't exactly denigrating my life.
No.
I was just not living my life, I guess, or at least not at night.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that example.
It's kind of like.
But if you can see someone's life is like visibly falling apart, or they can't keep up,
mm-hmm.
and it's because of anything, then yeah.
Like if I see the person who's been struggling with weed, for example, and I see that they're fine on the outside, but then I put myself in their shoes, and I think they're probably fighting some big demons in their mind.
Especially if they tell you about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a lot, like, same with, like, insecurities, for example, just a little tangent here, but same with insecurities, like, you can feel confident on the outside, but on the inside, some people are just
You mean like kind of inflated ego, like it's not real?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. I've had to deal with that too.
It's not the same thing, but
yeah, that's true. But it's just another demon.
And that's the thing with like, coping mechanisms too. It's like
copium.
Dealing with your problems instead of using whatever vice you can use to kind of just distract from it. Because it's like the more you use devices around you, I think I'm using that word correctly. But
no, that's right.
If the more you use devices around you to sort of avoid your problems, the bigger the problem is going to be down the line.
Yep, absolutely. It can just ferment and get bigger.
Yeah,
it's totally dangerous.
And it's like, what the best way to not do that is, I don't know, go to therapy.
What about one of the most common addictions across the entire male species?
Let's hear it.
Pornography.
Okay.
What a monster. What an absolute monster.
He's not invited to the party.
Not invited.
He's not invited. Get the...
I'm calling the cops.
Yep.
No, but honestly, yeah, I struggled with porn on and off for, I don't know,
I think
10 years.
I'll be honest with you. I think every guy at some point has struggled.
Most likely, yeah. No, I was definitely addicted to it because it got in the way of my life. And,
It's also just...
I was just scrolling just to scroll, too. Looking for stuff.
It's like, what's this?
And then collecting.
Looking for...
Making collections, which is bad.
Freaking dopamine thing.
Yeah, dopaminergic hit. And it totally hacks the biology because, you're not supposed to be able to see that much.
No.
But, I discovered it when I was 8 years old. And I struggled with it off and on.
Damn.
All the way until I was 20 or something. And I read a book written by a doctor in psychology, and he explained how pornography addictions and just looking at it, using it in general, can genuinely alter the structure of your brain and how you view women. And I'm still dealing with the repercussions, and it's really unfortunate because I know. Like, I don't have a normal viewpoint anymore. I don't know what a normal viewpoint is because I started when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, your brain was...
My brain is different. My brain is what it shouldn't be. So, damage is done.
It's one of those... The thing that gets me, though, is, like... It's one of the most... What's the word? Accessible...
Yes.
Things on the planet.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's just like...
Too easy. And it's not going away ever because there's money to be made in it.
Yeah.
Always.
With the freaking corruption in LA, for example. But it's just... Trying to get away from that is...
It's an absolute monster.
Yeah. It's just... Because, like, alcohol... So I struggled with alcoholism slightly. For like 2 years when I was in college, and that was fine because getting away from it was easier because I couldn't go to the store.
You'd have to go to the store and actually get
in the car or get on my longboard and just go.
Right.
With pornography, it's like,
grab your phone.
Grab your phone. Here. It's like
it's even in movies sometimes, depending on the movie. But it's not as charging.
What movies are you watching?
Okay, listen.
No.
HBO. I watched Game of Thrones for the plot. I did. I didn't know there was porn in it. I didn't know there were sex scenes until they happened. Someone told me that. Someone suggested the idea. We can digress here real quick. Someone suggested that Game of Thrones is just normalized porn, and I thought maybe you have a point.
Maybe.
But the thing about the sex scenes in Game of Thrones is that they didn't trigger me.
No.
So,
something about the... I don't... That's a tricky thing about, like, sex scenes in movies.
It depends on how they're written, because if they're just an aside, if it's just, like, kind of part of the story, then whatever. But if it's 50 Shades of Grey, then... well, that's a steaming hot pile of garbage. Well, I mean, that's the thing about writing is like sex scenes have to have a reason.
Yes.
And if they're pointless, then people hate it, turns out.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway. But, I hate how our society has normalized porn addiction. Like, it's totally normal and it's good and acceptable even. It's normalized in our society and it's accepted and it's even encouraged in some ways.
But isn't the whole idea of sex supposed to be just from a biblical perspective per se? We're going there. It's supposed to be like a sacred,
yes,
like a more sacred thing.
It is supposed to be
rather
sacred.
than regardless of if it's straight, gay, whatever. It's supposed to be a sacred thing among couples rather than just being just spilled out all over the internet.
I mean, if you want to,
I think about it like that.
If you want to involve biblical morals and laws,
biblical,
I mean that's fine. It's just that from the biblical standpoint, the point was under covenant, protection under covenant, a holy covenant.
Mm-hmm.
It's sacred and protected, and it is good and beautiful. And
it's also
so that just casual sex, it's like you're denigrating yourself, I think, and it's totally unhealthy. Even from a non-biblical standpoint, you could argue reasonably well and with plenty of logic that casual sex is just bad for you. Spilling your waters in the street, as the Bible would put it.
I like the whole privacy thing aspect of like sex and all that has completely been just destroyed by the internet. It's like from a non-biblical perspective, just you can hook up with whoever you want and just please do me a favor and don't film it and don't upload it, so that from a very blunt perspective. But anyway, going back to the accessibility annoys me because it's like if I'm just sitting at home and I'm bored out of my mind, which does happen all the time sometimes.
That is definitely a gateway.
I'm just like, oh, I'm going to reach for it. It's like, no. Boop, 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 boop.
It's a valid gateway.
Yeah.
Boredom. It can easily lead to that. I can attest to that, and it's known among men, of course. Boredom. Which is unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
Because you're bored, it's like, well, I'm in the mood for dopamine, and there's nothing to do.
And it's like that. One of my coworkers, actually, going back to the whole biblical thing real quick, not even biblical, but like one of this pastor that I work with, he said it he brought it up in a really interesting way, where rather than males going out and males and females for the whole scenario, rather than males and females going out and just meeting each other and dating and hooking up and stuff like that, they just watch like pornography. I'm just because the appeal of these are his words, not mine, but I thought it was an interesting way. He put it in a very interesting perspective where the enticement of sex is not the appeal of pornography. It's the rejection. The lack of rejection. Like when you hop on, like...
Lack of rejection.
You reach for your phone and it's right there. And there's no rejection like, oh, I don't want to...
There's nothing stopping you.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Like, that's why it's so enticing to some people. Because it's like, well, in some cases. And that's why... It's it's the delayed gratification, or I'm sorry, instant gratification, going on there, doing your thing, and whatever, rather than going out and actually working towards it, meeting new people and possibly new friends, and you know what I mean. So it's.
I mean, there definitely is a percentage of the population of males who are just really successful and get sex all the time, easy peasy, and it could be valid to say they might be addicted to that even. Rather than porn. Why would they use porn when they can get the real thing? It's right there.
And some people would also say, why use the real thing when they can just...
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective, or I mean, preference, and how that person might feel if they could or could not, whatever,
But it's just one of the most, like... It's a bitch.
It's a bitch.
It is. But... So, what other addictions would you say? Or should we stay on this topic? Because...
Up to you.
I don't know.
How do you get out?
What?
How do you get out?
Oh, okay.
Because if it's a disease,
How do you recover?
If it's a disease and you need external factors, how do you get away from something like porn?
You just get away from it, you know. And it's sure easier said than done.
Well, that's the argument of using sheer willpower, but as we've seen, and you might understand also yourself, and I also understand myself, is that using sheer willpower just doesn't
work.
It might work for a week.
It might work for 2 months.
Yeah.
But it's like what happens after that, you know, like, I mean, accountability, like people say.
Yeah, I mean, there's Covenant Eyes, that's starting to get popular, where it's like, you put it on your devices, and then you have someone else, and then you're on their plan, and if you breach, like, it watches basically, and then it gets reported.
Yeah.
And so that's a really almost a mercenary way of doing it. If you want to, I mean, it works probably. It's probably not comfortable or fun, but if you're determined and feel like that's the necessary way to do it, then sure. I had a friend who used it. His parents had him use it.
Or you can literally just do anything else.
Yeah.
Like not to just, I mean, like, to avoid pornography and all that.
Yeah, but even so, like,
depends on the person.
And that's still using sheer willpower, I want to say.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I mean, relapse is not. I'm not speaking for all males here, but, like, relapse is part of the process.
Is it?
Sometimes, because then it's like.
I don't think it's a necessary part of the process.
No, but it could happen.
Yeah, absolutely, it could be part of the process.
Yeah. Because when that happens, if I relapse with, like, alcohol or something, I will feel like absolute shit the next couple of days, but then I'll get the kind of the mojo again, and I'll just kind of get the motivation just to not do it. And do you think it's possible to quit alcoholism on sheer willpower? Because I did it. I think I did it. Haven't gotten drunk in 2 years, and here I am. But it also depends. You're right. Depends on
the person and just how far the disease is in your soul. I guess
depends how, like, bad the addiction was.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by, like, how?
I think so. Porn is
different, though.
I want to say a bit of a bigger monster than alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, the best way to play the game is to not, or the best way to win the game is not to play it. Think about it.
How do you not play it then? Live off the grid?
Do something else. Like, don't
do something else.
Don't go on the internet as much. I don't know. Read more. I don't know. This is just some things. These are things that I've tried, and like, what do you think? Like, what's your? You mentioned sheer willpower and how it's not enough, and sure, maybe it's not enough.
It wasn't enough for me with porn. I relapsed so many times because all I was using was sheer willpower.
The real question is, what's next? Like,
how do you not relapse?
Getting away from the big fish that's trying to eat you.
There were many times where I would just confess to someone at church, because that's what you're supposed to do. Is you bring it from darkness. You bring secret sins into the light, and that it does help. I mean, it does help, and that's the way you're supposed to do it. Mm-hmm. But I would relapse anyway, because there was still that part of me that still wanted it. That was still diseased, and that happened so many times. You know, lots of prayer and I'm like, sorry, I repent, but I didn't really mean it. You know, like, that's the thing about repentance, or we're trying to turn. It's like, it's a choice. Not only is it a choice, but you have to genuinely choose it. Yeah. And that's what I struggled with for a long time. And then, then it came to a point where I was like, this is really a problem. And I was at some Christian concert, and people were going around praying for people, putting their hands on your shoulders and praying, and the guy on the stage was like, if you have an addiction, raise your arms. And I rose my arms, and he was like, everyone go to people who with raised arms and lay your hands on them and pray. And I genuinely, like, inside my heart, I was like, I'm ready to not be completely done with this, because I felt so gross and disgusting and just far away and cold and dead. And people came and prayed, and it was not exactly exhilarating. Nothing, the clouds didn't part and light shined on my face and Jesus came down and touched me on the forehead. That's nothing exciting happened. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel power or whatever. I just became free. It was that simple.
Yeah.
Because all I did was trust God. And it really is that simple. That's all I did was I just put my trust in. And that's why I couldn't get away from it before. It's because I just didn't trust him. I didn't believe, and I felt like I let my shame keep me down. I felt like I wasn't good enough. But there's not exactly such a thing, because that's why there's grace, which is like unmerited favor. Like you have it no matter what. So, I didn't have the urge for porn after that, and I've been free ever since. And I haven't relapsed.
Wow.
It's great. I mean, that's a lie. I realized I kind of forgot. I have had urges, but they were really small. Nothing compared to the big, when the monster reared, when it, you felt like, oh, here comes another time where I'm going to do it.
Just taps like, hey, man.
Yeah, exactly,
It's
before it was a tsunami, and then after, it was just a little little wave, a little tiny wave, easy peasy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I mean by external factors, depending on the degree of disease that's going on. Best answer is Jesus.
It's just like, man, I don't know if we should get into it, but
why not?
I mean, I've been trying to be more of a believer, and kind of like accept the fact that God has a plan for all of us, regardless of if we're believers or not. Because then he sees us, but some of us don't always see him. And by that I mean, like with belief. If you don't believe, that's what I mean by if we don't see him. I'm sorry, we don't. Wow, how can I phrase this?
You can't see him, but you believe anyway.
If we believe him, then we, in a way, see him. But if we don't believe him...
Not particularly.
Well...
It's kind of... I would call it a choice of faith.
How about following him?
Yes.
Like, if we believe in... If we... Crap, I'm messing this up because my brain is out the door.
Just shush and let your thoughts coalesce.
Like... What would you say... I mean, regardless of if we believe in him or not, he has a plan. That's what I'm trying to say. I guess that kind of just he's there for us when we want to just follow him, and you're right. It's our choice to.
You mean he's always waiting with open arms, no matter what?
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely, always, and I can attest to that.
Like the whole all those atheists or something who just, I don't know. Like if there's so much evidence that he does exist, for hypothetically speaking,
there's plenty of evidence he doesn't.
Why not follow him if there's all this evidence?
Because there isn't enough convincing evidence.
Only if you're a narc, only if. I mean, you're right. It's a choice, and
it's a choice of faith. It's supposed to be ambiguous. That was the whole point. It was designed to be that way, ambiguous.
So in terms of addiction,
that's why it's called faith. You believe without really, really having really concrete evidence per se, and because there's plenty of sound logic on both sides to make the case of his existence and his non-existence, and that's fine. That's just the way it is.
So going back to the whole addiction thing real quick, the whole pornography thing, for example, do you think it's possible that, so let's say that someone does not believe in God, Do you think it's possible for that person to make it through a porn recovery without him?
Yes, but it would be an absolute...
It would be probably a shit show, I would assume.
It would be so incredibly difficult, and it depends on how they tackle it. If they involve other people and use something like covenant eyes or some way to catch them or keep them accountable, you know, which is uncomfortable, absolutely, for everyone. But,
sure.
You know, if it works, right? But, yes, there is a way without Jesus, but there will still be damage to your soul. You will still be scarred and unhealed, and only Jesus can heal something like that.
Mm-hmm. Temptation is literally just circling around us,
and he can remove that if you ask him. But you have to mean it.
Wow, this is just just a rabbit hole of just...
We're in the thick of it.
Yes.
It's great. I'm having a great time.
So, like, I don't know. I have my moments of non-belief, but there's no reason for me not to. There's no reason for me to not believe.
It's a choice.
Yeah. And it's like, I guess all the time I spent working at Foothills really has just...
Is that a church?
Yes.
It sounds like a church name.
Yeah.
I go to a church, it's called South Hills.
That's also that sounds like a church name.
Yeah.
No, but all the time working at my work really has helped me like get a perspective on it, because it's like I used to be kind of like when I was still in school, I didn't really ran away, quote unquote, from the idea of like faith and all that great stuff. But now it's like, well, why not believe?
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. I mean, sure, there's going to be those people that's like, actually, right? But it's like, that's your choice, man. So, like, my choice is like...
There's multiple reasons for that kind of pursuit.
Yeah, it's like, why not? Like, sure, sure, we can't physically see him, but that doesn't mean he's not there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
So, it's a gradual process, you know. And
absolutely. It's always gradual. Yes, that's what I've learned about that kind of thing. It's gradual.
Like, I would like to think that I just started
You have.
I've been kind of... I think I started it a few months ago.
Think of it as like a fade in.
Yeah.
Like a linear automation.
I think of it as like a stepping stone as well.
Absolutely.
And it's like, of course, there are people who have not started that little journey, but I've just been kind of just little baby steps. Like, I pray occasionally, I read the Bible, you know, occasionally, and it's not like a one and done type of thing. That's not how it works. That's part of, what's the word? Delayed gratification. And for a blunt example, right? And it's like, you got to work for it. It can't be...
There is an amount of effort that you do kind of have to invest to increase.
You can't faith. Amazon Prime your faith. And I learned that from another podcast that I edit sometimes. But you can't like order it in and be
you're totally right.
Like Domino's faith, where is it? Right?
Yeah, it's not like I wish I could just be at this level of faith. No, you have to. You have to walk there. And every step of the way is interesting and fun, and you grow and learn things.
I think meditation is also a good...
Meditation is a useful tool.
I meditate every day.
Good.
15 minutes a day, every morning.
That's good. Very useful.
So, we're really in the thick of it.
Absolutely. I wanted to say that there's two major reasons for why it's good to like choose the faith. One is because you can forge a genuine and intimate and real relationship with your Creator. And two, as a result, you transcend into something greater.
Yes.
Both for your own pleasure and happiness and contentness in life, but also it brings glory to Him at the same time, which is beautiful and good and the entire point.
I mean,
doesn't transcendence sound nice? I've transcended many levels. I'm definitely in a much better place than I was even just 2 months ago.
I mean, well,
There's always something new or exciting to learn or discover, and it's really quite fun, actually.
I mean, while we're here, when I was, going through a rough time last winter, I started looking at different, just one of those baby steps that I took was, reading, like there's a was it Matthew chapter 6 verse 25 or something, and it was like
just reading the gospel in general.
Yeah, but there's one verse that really like spoke to me. That was like, who were like, let's see, what was it, like, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?
Ooh.
And it's just like, holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Like, something about that verse just...
Yeah, there's other places, there's a couple of spots in the Bible that talk about how worrying is just pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, same with like being angry,
And that's the really awesome thing about the Bible is when you you just spend time reading it, and if it's a chore, then like be careful, find some way to make it fun, like eat a snack while you do it or something, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But like if you're genuinely interested, then it's better. And then, but by reading that text, something can jump out at you per se that you maybe didn't notice before, or you unlock like a kind of new understanding, and that's the Holy Spirit working in you.
Mm-hmm. Another, we went from addictions to here.
Yeah, it's
great.
Yeah. Natural flow.
Another good like Bible verse that I absolutely love is Philippians 4:6. It's the give all your anxieties to God and stuff. Mm. Like I'm, as you can probably tell, I'm an anxious person.
I am also anxious
sometimes. And so it's kind of like giving them. I actually made a short film about Philippians 4:6.
Really?
And it's called The Anxious Mind.
I think I saw something like that.
Yeah, but something about that just kind of stuck out to me,
Yeah, that's one of the other like kind of
that's where my
facets of the relationship between us and Christ is to literally just heap your burdens on Him, just like, and then you feel great because you're not worrying about it.
Partly where my journey of faith started, because like when I was going through that last winter thing, I remember sitting in the car, folding my hands, closed my eyes, bowed my head, and then I just said, "Lord, please help me." And it's just like, of course it didn't happen right away, and that's totally normal.
Yes.
But like over time, it's like, okay, like we're getting back. We're, like I said before, we're getting back on our feet. We're just gonna keep like, we're gonna get help through our trials and tribulations. And it's just we're gonna keep going.
Precisely.
It's just like, and that's why it's just amazing that like there's a plan for you, there's a plan for me. Yeah, just
the plan is to get closer. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about what you're supposed to do, because when the time comes, you'll just know what to do. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I believe that's kind of how he crafts it. You don't really have to worry about the plan.
No. But it's good to know that there's a plan in place. Because, some of us can operate without a plan, but some of us cannot. I can't operate without a plan. I need to know. Like, I don't need to know every step of the plan, but like as long as there is one, then it's like, okay.
There's a plan. There's somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you don't have to worry about how to get there.
No. Because it's like...
You just trust Him.
Mm-hmm.
And you're good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so beautiful and awesome. And it's liberating, because you don't have to worry. You just trust. When you have that, like, full trust that you place in Him. Yeah. It's liberating. I would say if you're inclined towards Christianity, or you are a Christian, or even a Catholic, or any religion or name that has to do with Jesus Christ and what He did, then the best way out of addiction, any addiction, in terms of being freed from it and being healed from it, is to trust in Him and to ask Him for help. Ask Him. Well, you have to turn to Him also. You have to allow Him. You have to surrender, as in you have to let Him take over. You just gotta be like, I let you take control. Or not, maybe not take control is the right way of putting it.
But like
giving yourself to him.
He can help guide. He can help guide you.
Yes. Too. Yes, he can.
Anyway,
that was a good conversation.
That was, yeah. Thanks for joining me, bro.
Of course.
I guess we'll have more conversations like this.
Absolutely.
Down the line. And go check him out, Levi Kuskie. He's got some pretty good music stuff on there. And yeah.